Jesse Ventura remains. He's going to announce in July whether he's going to be in the Senate race in Minnesota. Joining us in New York is Katrina Vanden Heuvel, editor of The Nation. Here in Los Angeles, our friend Michael Reagan, conservative talk radio host supporting John McCain. His website, by the way, the Reagan Exchange, is at Reagan.com. Before we get into the guests, Hillary Clinton may be fighting on, but John McCain clearly thinks Obama has the nomination locked up. Here's a sample of John today. Watch.
He also wants to sit down unconditionally for a presidential meeting with Raul Castro. An unconditional meeting with Raul Castro. These steps would send the worst possible signal to Cuba's dictators.
Why, Michael, is that a bad idea to talk rather than not talk?
Well, you know, you talk through other people that work for your administration. My father's people were talking to Mikhail Gorbachev's people behind the scenes. These are the things you do when you're president of the United States.
To Gorbachev's people.
Yes, after his people talked to Mikhail Gorbachev. But Mikhail Gorbachev, certainly different level than Castro and Cuba.
This is a general thing. Why not just talk, period, to anybody? How does it hurt to talk?
Because you don't put people like that on the same level as the President of the United States of America, much like the President of the United States doesn't like debating with people running against him because it puts him at the same level.
So the head of another country is not your equal?
Well, heads of some countries are. Heads of other countries certainly are not.
That's a little pompous, right? I'm better than you.
You are.
Oh, I see.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Katrina, you think he should talk to any leader?
Larry, we are living with the result of 7 years of failed policies, of not engaging, not talking to leaders, to others, even adversaries. There is a rollback of a bipartisan tradition. Michael spoke of his father, Reagan with Gorbachev, Nixon in China. Every president has engaged adversaries. Diplomacy is not appeasement, which is what Bush said the other week. And when McCain said that was right, it showed his failure to understand that not only do we need to engage, as everyone except neocon dead-enders think at this point, James Baker, Robert Gates, Bush's defense secretary, but we need a new foreign policy. We have lived with a hyper-militarized foreign policy that has made us less secure and more isolated in a world. Which is...
All right, Michael,
Larry,
hold on, Katrina. Jesse, what do you think of this position? Should we talk with anybody?
Absolutely. I'm a veteran, and war should be the last option, and it seems our country's now putting it as the first option. War happens because of failed diplomacy and failed politics. We have to talk to people. I think absolutely you talk to Raul Castro. I went down and visited Cuba over the Bush administration's objections. What, am I supposed to believe only what my government tells me? Or should I go down there and see what I can see with my own eyes?
All right. Michael, how do you respond?
Ronald Reagan didn't meet with Fidel Castro. Ronald Reagan didn't meet with Fidel Castro. You don't meet with really enemies of the United States of America. You don't go and meet with Ahmadinejad and put him at the same level that you are. That emboldens him, puts him at a completely different level.
Appeasement is giving something away. Meeting is not appeasement.
No, meeting, but how they read it and how we read it are certainly two different things. Always has been, always will be. You do not go in and embolden the Ahmadinejads of the world and think that they're at the same level. You keep them out of those meetings. Right. Talk to them, yes. You do not embolden them.
Let's take a look at how Obama is battling back against that McCain charge. Watch him.
We can restore a sense of diplomacy to our foreign policy. I will meet not just with our friends, but also with our enemies. John McCain doesn't like this. John McCain says this is naive. Let me tell you something. John McCain is supporting a George Bush foreign policy that has led us to be bogged down in Iraq. Afghanistan is slipping into chaos.
You agree with that, Michael, that we certainly have a failed foreign policy?
Oh, I think our foreign policy absolutely in many ways has been a failure. But I think it would have been a much bigger failure had John Kerry been there. I think George Bush did the right thing in going to war against Iraq and what he did with Saddam Hussein. We are mired in war, but in fact, we've been mired in wars during our lifetimes. And you know something? You go out, you win this war. Jesse Ventura, you need to win this war, not walk away from the war.
This war is unwinnable, and I'd like to remind Michael Reagan of his father's own history. There were the neocons in the Republican Party who said to President Reagan, don't engage Mikhail Gorbachev. That is the evil empire. Reagan, to his credit, did engage Gorbachev, and we had a safer world. Those opportunities have been squandered in these last years, and we are in danger of a new neocon foreign policy under McCain, who wants to start a new Cold War with Russia. We need to engage adversaries. Every president has done so, and we need to end the war in Iraq, as Congressman Wexler said, because it is destabilizing the Middle East. Why do we have $4 gas prices? We have destabilized a region that we must engage with, Michael. That is diplomacy,
we have $4
not
gas
appeasement.
prices. We have $4 gas prices because
We're in
for
hock
30
to
years
petro
we have
dictators.
not put in
it is a folly and a
refinery
failure
in this country to refine our oil and our fuel. $4 gas prices because we refuse to be competitive to the OPEC nations.
Did you watch
the
any
Democrats
of those oil executives today making billions of dollars?
So what?
Larry,
so what?
Larry,
You
So what?
You know something? I work 3 hours a day, Larry. You work an hour a day, but you make more money than me. Should you pay more now? Why are you making more money and I'm working 3 and you're working 1?
I'm not going out charging people $5 a gallon.
But you know something? They're making 8% profit. That's what they're making, 8% profit. You know something? There's more people now buying cars, using cars in developing nations.
Right,
what we need is refineries and nuclear power.
We'll pick right up with more. We'll invite this whole group back. Don't go away. Thanks very much, Anderson Cooper, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Jesse Ventura, John McCain on this program and in other places said this campaign will be a clean campaign. Do you believe that?
Well, I don't know, but I would, that's up to them. I doubt that it will be, but we'll wait and see. But I would like to address what Mr. Reagan said about winning this war. My president already stated that we won. He stood on the deck of an aircraft carrier and told me so. Then, of course, they said we'd be greeted like liberators, which we weren't. They said that Iraqi oil would pay for the war, which it hasn't. Why should I then believe these people who have not been right once since this war started?
Has he got a point, Michael?
You know, Jesse, I've got something here for you, really. Maybe you'll recognize. You know, you've always been a predator and nothing's changed. But let me just say this. You know, taking Jesse's idea.
Jesse, it's a little statue of you.
It's statue of you as in the predator.
You're not laughing, Jesse. It's cute.
But, you know, Jesse should know this. And you could use that argument, Larry, with every war we have ever fought. You can go back to the Second World War, you go back to Pearl Harbor, the Battle of the Bulge. You go through all those things.
When they bombed Pearl Harbor, we didn't announce we won.
But wait a minute. You're right. Did George Bush make an absolute faux pas with the whole thing on the Abraham Lincoln? Absolutely right. He certainly did. But you know, we're there. You just don't walk away. Battle of the Bulge, you name a war that we haven't, in fact, been in trouble and had to change things like we changed with the surge.
I think it's an obscenity to hold up a doll, whether it's a Jesse Ventura or anyone. You know why? Because 1 out of 5 returning veterans, if that doll represents a veteran, have post-traumatic stress disorder or brain injury, and we have a candidate, McCain. We have a candidate of McCain who is unwilling to support the men and women who have served this country with a GI Bill. But the main thing.
Have you been to Walter Reed Army Hospital? Have you been to Walter Reed Army Hospital?
The Nation magazine reporter just won. The Nation magazine's reporter has spent a year working with veterans who've been denied disability veterans.
Have you been there?
But I'm not. I'm speaking.
Have you not been there? I've been there 4 times.
Michael, let me just finish.
I've been there 4 times, so don't come at me about it.
You've been to the hospital. Well, why don't you chicken hawks go fight the war for a change?
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you.
You know, going to the hospital's one thing, but I don't see these hardcore Republicans. They were draft dodgers during Vietnam. Senator Norm Coleman's your classic chicken hawk from Minnesota, protested the war in Vietnam. Hell no, he wouldn't go. Well, his slogan today should be, hell yes, clean up my mess.
And they're shafting veterans today. That we have a humanitarian crisis in Iraq. We need to bring home our men and women and devote the funds to redeploy the men and women home safely and then help those in Iraq and rebuild a Middle East that is stable so this country is more secure. It is a different kind of foreign policy than we have seen in this country for the last 7 years of failed policies, and we need to find a way out. It is costing, Mr. Reagan, $4 million a second. We need to rebuild this country and re-engage the world.
Yeah, and by the way, Jesse, FDR, I think, did a great job in the Second World War. By the way, I don't believe he served. And Ronald Reagan, he did serve.
He couldn't walk.
Well, yes, but he didn't serve. He certainly won that war, didn't he? And Ronald Reagan, I think, won the Cold War without firing a shot.
Thank you, Jesse Ventura, Katrina Vanden Heuvel, and Michael Reagan. And Elizabeth Edwards is next, and you're watching Larry King Live. Don't go away.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.